The displacement in Seattle is pushing us to the far reaches of places that are not under consent decree. What will you do regionally? Because the displacement in this city is your fault as well. What are you going to do to ensure that that legislation gets okayed faster? Will you go to Judge Robart, Lorena, and ask him to read it and consider it in this next week? Will y'all, the rest of the council, make the same? We need you to lobby to get this legislation pushed through because our babies this summer have no protection. Our black men who did not get to speak have no protection. And we have no assurance. We have no assurance that any of that will happen. The last thing I want to say is, I don't trust police to investigate police. And y'all should not either. Y'all should not either. We need to see civilians included in the process. The Community Policing Commission needs to give technical assistance to that process. And we need to have transparency in it. You all need to hold regular meetings accounting for what is or is not happening and be willing to answer those questions with Kathleen O'Toole present and her boss, the mayor. Where is the mayor?
Well,
I'm gonna be short because I'm male, but I'm gonna talk because I'm black. So I don't know any of you guys on that table. Like I've only met Charlenna once. I've never met anybody else. Like where are you in black communities? Like where the fuck are you? Like you've been nowhere. Like I've been there. You have not been at the events. Where? I don't know your names. Like you're not in black communities. Be there for your city that you say you support for. Be there for the city that you want to counsel for. Be there. You are not there. I don't know who you are.
Okay. So there's I had said before that if a member of the family again wants to speak, that would be permitted, and I understand that this member of the family wishes to speak, and then we need to move to the council because you said you wanted to hear from the council, and so I'd like to I need a microphone for
I want to speak
for the family member because. And I'm sorry, as I said before, everybody's not going to get a chance to speak. And I know many of you lined up and hoped to speak. But I said the family members would have a priority. And then we also have to get to the council.
Well, my brother was killed in 2015. So I'd like to speak, please.
Okay.
Say, man, I am the same brother. Yeah. Yeah. What I was saying to you, and now say it publicly, is that we were trying to give black women an opportunity to talk. And if we didn't get to talk, then, we'll get to talk later. And so all this controversy of everybody hollering and screaming is not cool. And we're going to have another meeting. This is just the beginning. It's not the end. So I think you'll get a chance. So what I wanted to do was I wanted everybody in this room, minus black women. If you're already standing, I guess you're standing. But I wanted everybody else in this room to stand up besides black women for a second. Could you do that? And for all my sisters that are still seated, I just wanted to, it's a hard job. I can just imagine how black women feel in this city with a multitude of things going on. And so I wanted all the rest of us, just for a moment, to honor them. They're sitting down. We're all standing. Can we just give them an ovation? And that's it.
Stupid. That's what white men, they just be sitting there playing games. I don't care about this shit. Then you try to clap. You sit there playing stupid games on the chair, trying to balance yourself. It's a fucking game to you. how they all feel. He's just stupid enough to do it. He just dumbass. Everybody in the state, the white person in the state, they want to do it too. They want to play a little game, rock in the chair and do shit. They're like, oh my God, I gotta clap. They don't give a fuck. Get to the councilman. I don't hear no. Oh, Jesus Christ. They unlifted pops up.
My name is Don Alexander. I'm a cousin from Los Angeles and here too.
Man, Bill Cosby,
and
get the.
I was asked to close it out. Can you hear me now? I was asked to close this out because maybe some of the folks up there remember me. Who the hell knows? Some of you folks back here might. Who knows? But if those of you who have been speaking, I mean you ladies and you gentlemen who have been hollering and screaming about your voices being heard, there is something you can do if you have the gall to do it, because you're talking about you want to hear your voices. These people up here, they may or may not do something. I don't know what they might do. I know what they haven't done. But I also know what you folks haven't done.
Oh, tell them, Pops. Go ahead, Pops.
You sit here and you come out to these meetings. You're fabulous. You show your faces. You allow your tonsils to work.
Ooh.
But for some reason, and I think I figured it out, but I don't want to admit it because it's painful. Some of you folks just don't believe in walking. You don't believe that you can influence power to do something that you know they should do. Some of you don't vote, but what the hell, it's all right. But if you want something from these people are politicians. And if you think you're going to get something from them by sitting out there and smiling and hollering and yelling, that ain't going to happen. You have to go and knock on their doors, and if they don't open them, put your foot in it and knock the damn doors down. And if you're not ready and willing to do this, all of this other stuff that you're doing is showing up at these fabulous to-dos. Some of you start, you end up wanting the cantaloupes and the watermelon, fried chicken. But what about asking these people to listen to you and expecting them to do that? Why in the hell should they? Why would they listen to you when you're not doing anything to make them listen? Knock on their doors. Knock their doors down. Sit in. Cross the street. Close down the jobs. Tell these people that if they are sponsoring racism, that you are going to sponsor freedom. And if you're going to do that, and only if you do that, are these people going to listen. I'll tell you what, I'll bet you $1 to a dime. Well, I'm putting up the dime. But if you get to these folks, they'll get to the folks that they need to get to, because that's what they need to do to stay in office. And they like staying. Do you realize that the city of Seattle pays more to these people than they do to any other government entity in the state other than the governor? These people are powerful, but they are powerful when they want to be. They're powerful. Bill Gates. But if you think that your mouth and your actions and your ability to make your hand into a fist, if you think that that can't be done, then the hell with it. It's not going to work anyway. But if you have witnessed history and know that the only way to get power to react is with power, then you are going to knock on that. You're going to get up off your rusty dusties, leave this room, and have something in mind when we call you to go out tomorrow morning, to go out tomorrow and go to the schools like Garfield closed down so those 18, 17-year-old children could walk for freedom, and you people sit on your rusty dusty and talk about the police. Hell, the police doing their job. Why don't you do yours?
Pops was speaking real. How simple.
So, I feel like the family member has spoken, and that is an appropriate last word from the public. And I apologize because I know that there are more people who had something they really wanted to say, but we can't get everybody in this one time. So many powerful words have been spoken here already, and I'm not trying to negate what anybody else would have said, but many, many powerful words have been spoken. I feel like clear pain has been expressed, anger has been expressed, hurt has been expressed, but also direction has been given to the city council. Questions have been asked of them, and strong suggestions have been made to them. So you have spoken, and that is so important, and I'm grateful for it. So I'm going to start at that end, and I think it's O'Brien down there at the far end, and we'll work our way back to Councilmember Gonzalez, who will close us. And now we can hear some comments from them. And as we did when you all were hearing from each other, I'm going to request and remind you still of the agreement that we're going to listen and respect and be mindful, because you said you wanted to hear them speak, so let them speak and hear them. Oh, and the council members have. So the council members have 2 minutes each. We're going to work our way from that end to this end and then close. Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember O'Brien.
Thank you. Mr. Lyles and family, I am so sorry for what happened to your daughter, and I know that that's just words.
Yeah, shut the fuck up.
To act, and I know that we've been working hard on this, and good people have, and yet this still keeps happening, and it's not right. I'm sorry.
It's not right. What?
I think the police chief and the police department should be here. They should. I acknowledge there's some questions and things they may not be able to comment on, but there are other things they can, and at a minimum, they can be here and listening. Same for the Office of Police Accountability. As a straight white man, I have a lot of privilege. My interactions with police are not what I heard about tonight. My 2 teenage boys are white. Their interactions with police are not about what I heard tonight. I've never feared for their life or safety, but I know their friends who are black do. And it's not fair and it's not right. I have an obligation and a commitment to you to continue to work on what I can do to make that system better. And I appreciate you all being here to share your stories with me. I'll tell you that if you come knock on my door, I will open it. I will also commit to come out to meet you wherever you want to meet. For the people who spoke tonight and want to speak more, for the people who didn't have a chance to speak tonight, I want to continue to hear from you and hear how we make this better. I am happy to sign a letter to Judge Robart to ask him to move swiftly, or any other strategies you have. Thank you.
Yeah, he better cut it short while you're ahead. He left on a high note. That was a good one. Go ahead, Shamo. We're a bad so.
Thank you, sisters and brothers, for especially to those who spoke, but also everybody who's here in solidarity with Charlenna and every black, brown, and poor person who is targeted systematically by the police department, not just in Seattle, but nationwide.
Yeah, go ahead, Shama. Go ahead. Talk your shit. Go
my
ahead.
condolences to Charlenna's family members. I can only imagine what you're going through right now. And it is deeply appreciated that you're here despite the grief, personal grief, family grief that you're feeling. And I also wanted to let Charlenna's family members who are here that just before the hearing, I had the opportunity to speak to 2 of your family members on the phone, and that I want to remain in touch with you, and I ask you to let me know, my office know, if there's any way at all that we can help. But moving to the question of justice, what we heard time and time again in this hearing today, and what we've been hearing for years, and as others have said, this has been a decades-long issue and it's only getting worse, is what is actually going to change. And that is where I think my role as an elected representative of Seattle's working people comes in, as somebody who's seriously fighting against racial injustice. I want us to know, as people who are joined together in our fight for social justice, that we, first of all, we won this public hearing only because we've been demanding it as a movement. When our brother Che Taylor was killed last year, I was, and the community with me, was demanding a public hearing. That never happened. Most of the council and the mayor turned a deaf ear towards that. But the fact that we got a public hearing this year is a sign that we are having an impact. However, I join everybody who said that Chief O'Toole should be here. I demanded that Chief O'Toole should be here. And when I heard from the council members in charge of this committee and from Chief O'Toole that she would not be here, I sent another letter yesterday saying this is not good. You should be here because a woman has been killed at the hands of police officers that report to you. She sent me a letter saying today that my request to her reflects a disappointing level of ignorance in SPD policies and clear disdain for investigatory process. I think that disdain is by the chief towards the community. Last Tuesday,
can we please continue?
Last Tuesday.
Hey, yo, let Shama speak, yo.
All right.
Yeah, what the fuck, yo? Yeah, shut the fuck.
Last Tuesday, I sent 9 questions to the SPD. Please take a copy of it if possible from the table outside. I sent 9 questions to Chief O'Toole and the SPD about their policies and procedures and why Charlenna's life was lost. I still haven't heard back on those questions, and I urge the SPD to get back to me. I'll finish soon. I do think we are all demanding not just a space to grieve, which absolutely is necessary, but we are demanding actual change. So I think that what we really need to go towards is civilian oversight bodies that have full powers over the police. But as a step towards that, I have a petition. Already close to 2,000 people have signed it. I urge everybody to sign it. This petition demands that the mayor and the city council appoint an independent community-based investigation team to investigate Charlenna's death, because we know that police investigating the police is not working. So I would urge the council members who are here to say openly whether they support such an independent investigating team or not, because that's the first step.
Well, that's a good little question for the remaining council members. What the hell is? What? Oh hell! This. Oh, that's Chris Farley.
Thank you. I want to share what I heard tonight from you. First off, an early statement from a testifier was the statement that we need to shame America. I think we're already shamed. I've heard that the public wants us to stop focusing on the mental health of Charlenna. I've heard that we need more ways to humanize the training of officers. We need to have de-escalation training that is focused on situations that happen very quickly, where there's not a lot of time to act. I've heard concern and anger.
Yeah, well, I mean, you heard, well, you talk about what you heard.
This is the time for the council members to speak, please.
I've heard anger about comments by SPD.
Yeah, she's about to get
I've heard anger from
booed.
speakers that SPD made comments that Charlenna was too poor to own the things that she was reporting as stolen. I've heard you ask me to acknowledge the fear, the anger, the sadness, and that there's injustice, and asking you to depend on a system that has failed you for generations or is working as designed, depending on your perspective.
She's doing horrible.
And I've heard you say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Oh my gosh, she did the quote.
And so what I am pledging to you is to work on finding a new way of doing things so that we actually get different results.
Oh, she's doing horrible.
The council has not only sent on the 9 questions that Councilmember Sawant named, but we've also sent on 34 questions, and part of this hearing is designed to collect additional questions to share with SPD and the OPA to include in part of their investigations. I've heard you ask me to use my power on the council to change what is happening, and that is what I pledge to do. I will use the power that I have on the city council to change what is happening today in our city.
Wow, that's great.
I've heard you ask what you need to do. Okay, well, what I said I would do is I would use the power that I hold on the city council to make a change, to figure out how we proceed with the investigation of Charlenna's death in such a way that we're doing something differently than what we have been doing.
That's horrible.
So before we go to the next council member, you guys wanted to hear from them, so let them speak. You might, whether you like what they say or not, please let them speak because you asked for them to have it. So 2 minutes each, continuing down the line.
To Charles.
It sucks to go after her, man.
To Charles and Big Charles and Little Charles, I'll say it's an unnatural sequence of events to outlive your child or your grandchild, particularly at the hands of violence. Being a father and a grandfather, I don't know if I could survive that. And I'm hopeful that the love you see actually in this room and the love around you and the faith is what keeps it all together. I realized I've known some of your family members most of my life. I'm hoping Michael doesn't tell a few secrets he has on me, because he's got a few on me. You telling them all? She's changed this city. If I were killed, I'd be lucky if I got a fourth of these folks to show up. She was loved. She was loved. She was loved. I think at the end of our lives, the historians would look at this period of our life in 2017 as what I called an era of justifiable anger. Justifiable anger. I know many of you have seen the documentary 13th by Ava DuVernay. In there, she talks about race and justice and mass incarceration, the militarization of police violence. We are living in times where I think all these folks up here are good people. I'll defend each one of them. That they will spend countless hours trying to figure out, looking at her life for solutions. We're going to introduce a law in a few weeks in Councilmember Gonzalez's committee It's going to be one of the unprecedented laws that we've drafted. It's actually a racial profiling bill, if you will, that talks about if race is a factor, then the public should be able to pursue that and have standing. Right now, you'd have to go under a federal law or a state law. We introduced it several months ago, and we're going to introduce that and tee that up. Now, you know the biggest tragedy, now I know some of you guys, I make you go into 2 minutes, I'm going to wrap up. You know the biggest tragedy in my mind is this is tearing the city apart. And Charlenna is not here to defend herself. And that's why I've been pushing for camera technology, because I want to know. I got to tell you, I grew up with strong black women in my life. It started with my grandmother. It continued with my wife. And let me tell you something, my daughter is a handful. They are resilient. They are beautiful. They are strong. We will not forget your granddaughter, your daughter. We're sorry that those two lives were taken. Our prayers are with you.
I want to echo the comments of many of my colleagues and express my sincere condolences to the family. My name is Rob Johnson. I represent the area where your daughter, granddaughter, and relative was killed. And I live about 2 miles away. I've got 2 6-year-olds and a 4-year-old at home. We live right on 65th Avenue Northeast, where a lot of those emergency responders come. And when those emergency responders come speeding past our house, my daughters ask me every time, "Is everybody okay?" And my answer is always, "I'm sure the folks who are going to help are going to be there, and they're going to be there on time." And in this case, the system failed. And I was heartbroken to get the news. While we continue to work to break down institutional racism in all departments within the city, including the police department, I remain focused on the critical needs that have been identified by those folks that are living in and around the community of Magnuson Park, which include identifying ways to support others in similar situations to prevent this from ever happening again, to build those protections through connections that folks talked about today, which has got to be so much more than just with officers, but also with each other and within community. And I want to say thank you to Gordon McHenry and the folks at Solid Ground and all the folks who came out here tonight. I will continue to work hard to provide solutions, to identify the support that we can offer as a city to make your lives better and to make the lives of all of our community members better. Thank you.
I didn't say shit, but you didn't say shit, but I guess just pass the mic.
Reverend Kelly Brown, when you first started, I'm over here. I'm Sally Bagshaw. Thank you. Thank you for what you started off, which was you asked for transformation. You asked us to really hear from this group. And I want to say that of all the public meetings I've attended in the last 8 years, I have never heard more passion, more anger, more articulate fear expressed. And to the family, Charlenna Lyles is a name that we now know in our city. And Charlie, thank you for your courage of stepping forward, all of you in the family who are here today. I heard some things that I've never heard before. For example, how can you protect us if you can't connect with us? And I know that the woman who said that was standing over there, but I just want you to know from me that I heard that, and that transformation, I am not the same person who's going to be leaving here as the one that walked in this door. I heard things from you tonight that you expect more from us. You expect more from our police. You expect more from our system, from housing. This is what I pledge to you that I will do. I'm going to be working much more closely with the group that we've spent so much time with over the last number of months to make sure that the police are accountable, that we really understand what has happened to Charlenna and that she's not left, and her death is not left unaccounted for. So if I can come back just to say thank you for this opportunity, and to my colleagues down the row, I know that this was hard to move this as quickly, but I also want to recognize our moderator, Michelle Storms. Thank you for creating the space here so we could hear from Black women.
So we can hear from Black women.
Thank you. First, Mr. Lyles, I join my colleagues. I'm very sorry that your daughter's life was taken. It's a tragedy at so many levels, and as I've listened to folks this evening, I keep thinking about the children left behind. And as Bruce said, there's something wrong with the cycle where a parent outlives their own child. So I'm sorry, and thank you to all the family members who came and shared your feelings and your wishes with us. I appreciate that very much. I'm also willing to sign a letter to the federal judge and ask him to hurry up. Federal judges don't always do what we want them to do, but we can certainly ask them to do that. I know that the federal judge's monitoring team, which is overseeing our police department, they have representatives here tonight, and they are also closely watching the investigation of Charlenna's death. And we know that all of that information and all of the details and all the facts of that will be released in due time. Bruce spoke about the bias-free policing law that he has sponsored and will be considering in committee in just a few weeks. I'm also very supportive of that. And, some of you aren't going to like what I say right now, but several decades ago, I was a Seattle police officer. And it breaks my heart that we are still here today dealing with some of the very issues that we were dealing with back in the 1960s and 1970s.
Because you was a perpetrator.
And that's a failure. That's a failure for all of us. And I accept my responsibility in that. And I know that working for the last year or so with Councilmember Gonzalez and authoring with her the legislation with the Community Police Commission that is going to radically change how civilians oversee our police department and investigate cases like this. I think we're on the right path. We just need to make sure that we continue and get this work done.
He didn't do bad. He tried to clean it up at the end.
Thank you.
She got small
I just wanted to say, I don't want to sound this like to be a political speech. I don't want to take advantage of this horrible tragedy for political gain or my career. But I want to say this.
Why even say that?
I took 4 pages of notes and I listened to 24 women, and this is the first time in my life, and I'm 57, that I've ever been in a meeting this big where I only heard from my African American sisters, ever.
She was good for 57.
And like I said, I took 4 pages of notes, and some of the words from Roxana, Reverend Harriet Walden, Miss Anderson, I didn't get her first name, Rose Floyd. When Rose said to yield to a black woman, that spoke to me on so many levels as a Native American Latina woman. Listening to Nikita Oliver, Miss Madison, and Joy, a friend and neighbor of Charlene, all of you came to us with your stories and your pain and your want to know, what are you going to do next? Well, I know what we've already done with police legislation and reform under the leadership of Councilmember Gonzalez. It's in front of Judge Robart. We all worked hard on that. We all voted on that unanimously. We can't not understand and know what's next on the inquest. That Councilmember Gonzalez and I have watched the inquest and know that that will be coming up with King County, and we promise you that we will continue to be vigilant and stand by that. We will demand accountability, transparency, and community oversight, and not allow this to happen. I come from the Native American community, and those of us remember when we lost John T., that we didn't have this kind of room to heal. What I heard tonight is that besides being in pain, and I want to thank the family, because not only did you bring your pain, but you brought love and you brought laughter and you brought stories about Charlene. And where I come from in Indian country, that's what we do. We talk about those. And, it's interesting that Roxana said something that I was telling people before we came out here, that where I come from, when we lose someone, we don't say their name for a year. And I know the chant is say her name, but for me culturally, we don't say that because we're allowing that person to go to that next world, and we don't want to call them back. And the healing has to begin. And so, without sounding too hippy-dippy here, and about kinship, the word in Blackfeet is akiwa, and that means healing. And that's what we wanted to do tonight. We weren't trying to hide. We were not trying to take responsibility. Maybe other people were doing that, but I know my colleagues and I were not. We wanted to face you. We wanted to be courageous, and we wanted to hear, and we wanted to see your anger and your pain and your concern, and more importantly, those of you who hollered out, what are you going to do? Keep doing that. Thank you.
So I just want to thank you all for spending your time here in this space, listening to each other and giving us an opportunity to share some words with you. I want to especially thank the Lyles family for being willing to stay here from the start to the end. This is not an easy thing for you all, and as you can see from what you heard in this room today, that there's a lot of people in this room and a lot of people in this city, and I'll include myself in that category, that are grieving the loss of your daughter, even though we never had an opportunity and the privilege to meet her and to know her. And I just want to thank you for sharing some stories about her and for being willing to give her the humanity that she deserves in this space that is a sanctioned space, that is a space that was brought together by an institution that I recognize has a lot of work to do to dismantle institutional racism that eventually leads to these tragic, tragic results of losing somebody like Charlenna and causing further trauma to 4 children who don't deserve it. So I want to thank you for being here with us. In terms of what we're going to do next, this is a first step. I've been very clear about the fact that I believe that this is a first step. I practiced as a civil rights attorney for 10 years before this. I've sued the Seattle Police Department for biased policing, for excessive force, so on and so on. And we're asking the tough questions. You heard Councilmember Swant and you heard a few other council members talk about how we have sent a list of very hard-hitting questions to the police department. You should have all received a copy of those questions at the front. We need to continue to ask those tough questions. We need you to push us to continue asking those tough questions. And somebody out here said, we will hold you accountable. I hope you do. I want you to hold us accountable because we are accountable to you and only to you. This is a first step. Let me repeat that. This is a first step in this conversation. Through what I have heard is that we need more training. And we as policymakers need to get a better understanding of what those trainings are. When we say de-escalation training, what does that mean? How did de-escalation training fail Charlenna? How will it fail the next person?
Not the training, man.
Those are the questions that I know we need to be asking. It is the questions that we're going to continue to ask. The taser questions around taser policies. We have issued a series of questions related to why it was that this officer chose to put his taser in the locker as opposed to taking it with him. So I think it's important for us to take a closer look at those training policies and to identify whether or not we need to improve them. I wanna address what Nikita brought up in her comments around the legislative process and moving forward. We have already begun the process of asking the judge for an expedited review of some of the more critical parts of that legislation, including making sure we get our Inspector General in place to help figure out how we're going to shake the trees around some of these systemic issues that keep happening. So we will continue to push the court, ask for an expedited review, and we have people from the police monitoring team in this audience, and I hope that they will work with us at the city to encourage an expedited review given the circumstances that we're dealing with and given the fact that we can't wait any longer for these systems to be changed. So the last thing that actually two more things that I just want to say in terms of what I hope to be able to do are we need to continue dedicating lobbying resources at the city to change state laws that are creating injustices and inequities. And to me, there's a few areas where that matters, and I'm going to try really hard not to get wonky on you guys, but one is the law that basically makes it impossible to charge an officer is wrong.
That is true. I don't know what the fuck wonky
We
is.
have to continue to fight to change that state law so it's not impossible to charge an officer for a felony murder when the evidence supports it.
That's crazy.
And this is an absolutely important systemic change that we will commit the city to continue to lobbying for. The last thing I will say is that I intend to go back. I know that you all hoped for the chief to be here. I had extended an invitation to her. She was unable to accept my invitation. Contrary to popular belief, I do not have subpoena powers. I cannot force her to appear before this committee. And I will, however, when we go back, I will encourage and I will hopefully work with my colleagues who are interested in pressuring the chief to have her own community hearings with the community, because I believe that that's the right thing to do, and I believe that you all deserve to have an audience with her, and I hope that she will take advantage of that opportunity. So that being said, we are going to close out this hearing. I want to, before we all break up, there's a lot of people who worked really hard to create this space for you. And I want to acknowledge Michelle Storms, our facilitator, for being with us.
She had a hard job, dude.
And I want to just take a minute to acknowledge all of the silent folks who are in the background working very hard to pull all of this together, and that is the staff of various city council member offices, including my own. So if you could raise your hand if you are here as a staff member or volunteering, please raise your hand and be acknowledged. So I want to thank you all for coming, and I hope that we can continue our work together and in unison. No further business being before this committee. We are now adjourned.
Alright, folks, you heard it. That was a whole bunch of horse shit, but hope people felt good just sitting there talking to people, just one ear out the other. That's just to pacify you. Pop spoke the truth. You gotta knock the doors down. All that talking shit ain't gonna work. But anyway, East Side out.